You ever notice how the most dangerous people never walk in announcing themselves? They don't wear a sign that says, "I'm here to hurt you." No, they smile, they charm, they blend in, and before you know it, they've sown chaos in your life while you're still trying to figure out what happened. This talk isn't about fear, it's about awareness, because the truth is, evil doesn't always look evil at first glance. But if you know the signs, if you see the patterns, you can protect your heart, your mind, and your peace before it's too late. They don't come in with a roar, they don't slam doors or shout their intentions from the rooftops. Evil people understand that if you saw their true face too soon, you'd run. So they put on the mask, a mask of kindness, generosity, patience, whatever you want to see. They become the person you think you need in that moment. And you know what makes it so effective? It's not just that they act nice, it's that they study you first. They watch, they listen, they gather every little detail, every preference, every insecurity. Then they build a character tailored just for you, like a costume that fits perfectly. At first it's disarming. You meet them and think, wow, they get me. They laugh at the right moments, they offer the right compliments, they even show vulnerability to make you feel safe. It feels real, because that's the point. If it didn't feel real, you'd never let them in. They give you comfort, they give you attention, they give you exactly enough of what you've been missing to hook you. But what they're really doing is setting the stage. They're laying down trust like a foundation, but not to build something beautiful, to build something they can later burn down, knowing you'll still be standing there, trying to put the pieces together. You see, evil doesn't win by force, it wins by permission, and most of the time, we grant that permission without realizing it. We open the door because the person standing outside doesn't look like a threat, they look like a blessing. The mask works so well because our hearts want to believe in it. We want to believe people are who they say they are. We want to believe kindness is real, that smiles mean something, that someone extending a hand actually wants to help us up, not pull us down. And that's what makes this tactic so effective. It plays on the best parts of us. Evil pretends to mirror your goodness, but in reality, it's only reflecting back what it needs to keep you close. In the beginning, you might even feel grateful for them. You might think, finally, someone who understands me. You might lower your guard, share your struggles, invite them into your inner world. And every piece of information you give them becomes another thread in the net they're weaving around you. It's not just about gaining your trust, it's about gaining access. Access to your thoughts, your emotions, your habits, and eventually, your weaknesses. And here's the dangerous part, the mask doesn't crack easily. Some people wear it for weeks, others for months, even years. They can be patient, because the payoff is worth it for them. They'll smile at you, support you, stand beside you, until the day they need to get something from you, or take something from you. That's when the real face shows, but by then, you're so invested in the version of them you thought you knew that you'll start making excuses for the one you see now. You'll say they're just having a bad day, or that's not like them. You'll cling to the memory of the mask, because letting it go means accepting that you've been fooled. And accepting that is painful. Nobody likes to admit they've been deceived, especially by someone they trusted, but the sooner you accept it, the sooner you can step away. The mask of kindness isn't just a trick, it's a weapon, it's a way to bypass your natural defenses. Think about it, if someone comes at you with open hostility, your instinct is to push back or get away. But if someone comes at you with a smile and an open hand, you lean in, you give them more than they deserve. And the whole time, they're taking notes, figuring out exactly how to get what they want from you. You might even notice little slips along the way, a comment that feels off, a glance that doesn't match the smile, a reaction that's sharper than it should be. But because the mask is still mostly in place, you brush it off. That's what they count on. They know you'd rather keep believing the illusion than face the discomfort of the truth, and when the mask finally does fall, it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's slow, subtle, almost unnoticeable, until one day you realize you're not dealing with the same person anymore. Or maybe you are, and you just never saw them clearly before. That's the moment you feel the sting. You remember all the times they were so kind, and you see them for what they really were. calculated moves to position themselves in your life exactly where they wanted to be. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You realize the kindness wasn't kindness at all, it was bait. You realize the friendship wasn't friendship, it was a strategy. You realize the love wasn't love, it was leverage, and you wish you could go back and warn your past self, tell them not to fall for it. But life doesn't work that way. What you can do is take the lesson forward. Here's the truth. Genuine kindness doesn't need to be proven. It doesn't come with conditions. It doesn't change when it's inconvenient. And it certainly doesn't vanish the moment it's no longer useful. When someone's kindness is real, it's consistent, not perfect, but steady. When someone's kindness is a mask, it will always eventually slip. The most dangerous evil doesn't scream in your face, it smiles in it. And if you want to protect yourself, you have to learn to look beyond the mask. You have to listen not just to their words, but to the patterns. You have to notice not just how they treat you when they want something, but how they treat you when they have nothing to gain. Because that's where the truth lies, and once you see that truth, you'll never see the mask the same way again. They don't just lie to you. Lying would be too simple, too easy to spot. No, what they do is far more dangerous. They twist the truth until it's unrecognizable. They take reality, bend it in just the right places, and hand it back to you in a way that makes you second-guess your own memory, your own perception, even your own sanity. That's not just deception, that's control. When someone lies, you can often catch them. There's a detail that doesn't add up, a story that doesn't match. But when someone twists the truth, they start with something real, a fact, a moment, a piece of the truth. Then they stretch it, reshape it, and add just enough of their own narrative to make it believable but still serve their agenda. And because there's a trace of reality in it, it becomes much harder to challenge. They'll say things like, "That's not what happened," when you know it is. They'll recall conversations that never took place, or leave out key parts of the ones that did. They'll tell you you're remembering wrong not once, but over and over, until you begin to doubt yourself. It's not just about convincing you of their version, it's about making you question if you can even trust your own. And that's where the real danger begins, because once you stop trusting your own judgment, you start depending on theirs. You lean on their version of events to feel secure. You let them guide your decisions because you're afraid your own perspective might be flawed. And in that moment, they've got you. They've planted themselves as the authority in your life, the final say on what's true and what isn't. At first, you might push back. You might think, "No, I remember this clearly," but they'll respond with such calm certainty, or maybe even with outrage, that you begin to wonder, am I overreacting? Am I imagining things? They'll accuse you of being too sensitive, too dramatic, too emotional, and slowly, your grip on the truth begins to loosen. This is not an accident, this is a tactic. It's called gaslighting, but in the hands of someone truly manipulative, it becomes an art form. They know exactly which parts of reality to attack and which to leave untouched so that you're never completely sure where the ground is under your feet. And here's what makes it so disorienting. They can mix cruelty with kindness. One day, they undermine you, make you question your thoughts. The next day, they're sweet, supportive, and loving, almost like nothing happened. This back and forth creates a kind of emotional fog. You want to believe the good moments are the real ones, so you downplay the bad, but deep down, something feels off. Over time, you begin to censor yourself. You stop bringing up certain memories or facts because you already know they'll tell you you're wrong. You stop questioning them because it always turns into a battle you feel like you can't win, and eventually, you may even start to repeat their version of events to yourself, not because you fully believe it, but because it's easier than constantly fighting for what you know to be true. This is the slow erosion of self-trust, and once that's gone, they can build whatever reality they want around you. They can justify their actions, hide their faults, even make you take the blame for things you never did. You become the villain in their story while they play the role of the misunderstood hero, and you'll start apologizing for things that weren't your fault, because you've been conditioned to think that maybe, somehow, you were in the wrong. What makes this so insidious is that it doesn't happen overnight. It's gradual, almost invisible at first. Maybe it starts with them correcting a small detail in your story. Then they question your tone, your intentions, your recollection of an important event. before long, they're questioning your feelings, telling you you shouldn't feel the way you do, that you're overreacting, that you're imagining problems where there are none. And when that becomes normal, it's no longer just your memories under attack, it's your very sense of reality. They create a world where you need their approval, not just for what you do, but for what you believe is true. And the cruel irony is that they will use your desire for peace against you. You'll start agreeing with them not because you actually believe them, but because you just want the argument to end. But every time you do that, you hand over a little more of your confidence, a little more of your clarity, until one day you realize you're living in their version of the truth entirely. The hardest part about dealing with someone like this is that they can convince outsiders too. If you ever try to tell someone else what's been happening, they'll point to all the times this person seemed so reasonable, so calm, so put together. They'll say, "Are you sure you're not overthinking it?" And you'll feel even more isolated. That's part of the plan. The fewer people who believe you, the easier you are to control. But here's what you need to remember. The truth doesn't become less true just because someone denies it. Reality doesn't bend to their will, no matter how many times they try to rewrite it. And you have the right, no, the responsibility, to hold on to your version of events when you know they are real. Pay attention to the patterns, notice who consistently makes you question yourself and who helps you see things more clearly. Watch how you feel after talking to someone. Do you leave feeling grounded, or do you leave feeling unsure of your own mind? That feeling will tell you more than their words ever will, and if you ever find yourself in a place where you're constantly questioning what's real, remember this. Confusion is the weapon of the manipulator, clarity is the weapon of the free. Some people will see you hurting and instinctively reach out to help. They'll listen, they'll comfort, they'll protect, but others, the ones we're talking about today, will see your pain and think, "Here's my chance." They don't just notice your weakness, they feed off it. Your lowest moments become their opportunities, your heartbreak becomes their leverage. Your failure becomes their advantage. When you're in pain, your defenses are already down, you're searching for relief, for something to hold on to. And evil people know that. They understand that when you're vulnerable, you're more likely to accept what you'd normally reject, to trust what you'd normally question. They time their moves for when you're emotionally or mentally worn thin, because that's when their influence has the best chance to stick. It often starts with them showing up as a comfort. They might be the first one to offer you a shoulder to cry on. They might tell you they understand you better than anyone else. They might even step in to protect you from others. But make no mistake, they're not there to heal your wound. They're there to make sure they know exactly where it is and how deep it runs. They ask questions not to help, but to gather information. They'll remember every hurt you share, every insecurity you confess. And later, when they need to control you, they'll use those same wounds as pressure points. They'll bring up the things you're most sensitive about, not to help you overcome them, but to make you doubt yourself, to keep you dependent, to make sure you never feel strong enough to walk away. Sometimes they won't even wait. They'll exploit the pain immediately. If you've just gone through a breakup, they'll position themselves as the one who truly understands you, but only so they can draw you closer on their terms. If you've lost a job, they'll remind you of how much you need them to get by. If you've made a mistake, they'll keep circling back to it, not to help you grow, but to keep you under a cloud of shame. And it's subtle at first. They don't come right out and say, "You're weak, so I can control you." Instead, they might say things like, "You know you couldn't handle this without me," or "If it wasn't for me, where would you be?" It sounds like they're reinforcing your need for them, but in reality, they're reinforcing their control over you. The most dangerous part is how they can make this exploitation feel like care. You might even think, "They're the only one who's been there for me." And maybe they have been there, but their presence came with a price. Every bit of comfort they gave was also a brick in the cage they were building around you. When you're in pain, you want to believe the people who show up for you are there for the right reasons. And sometimes they are, but when they're not, the damage can be devastating, because you've not only let them into your life, you've let them into your most private struggles. You've shown them where it hurts, and now they have a map of your heart, and they know exactly where to strike. You'll notice it when they bring up your past failures during arguments, or when they use your insecurities to win a disagreement. You'll notice it when they withhold kindness or support unless you give them what they want. They might even create situations that trigger your pain just so they can be the one to rescue you again. It's a cycle: hurt, rescue, control, repeated until you don't even remember what life felt like without them in it. What makes it so hard to break free is that it's all tangled up with the moments that felt genuine. You'll look back and think, but they were there when no one else was, and that might be true, but being present doesn't mean they had your best interest at heart. Sometimes it just means they saw your weakness before anyone else did and decided to take advantage of it. It's like a predator waiting near a watering hole. They don't attack when you're strong and aware. They wait until you're tired, thirsty, distracted, then they move. They're patient because they know pain is inevitable for everyone, and when it comes for you, they'll be ready. That's why it's so important to pay attention not just to who shows up when you're hurting, but how they act over time. Do they help you heal, or do they keep you stuck? Do they encourage your independence, or do they subtly make sure you always rely on them? True care empowers you, exploitation chains you, and here's the truth that's hard to accept: not everyone who comforts you has your healing in mind. Some are just keeping you close enough to use later. Some are only feeding you enough hope to keep you from walking away, while making sure you never fully recover your strength. The sign is in the outcome. When you're around them, do you feel stronger, clearer, more able to stand on your own? Or do you feel smaller, more uncertain, and more dependent than before? That's not an accident, that's the strategy. Because to an evil person, your pain isn't a tragedy, it's an opening, and the moment they find it, they'll make sure it never fully closes. Evil doesn't just work on you directly, it works on your environment. It knows that as long as you have strong, healthy connections around you, you're harder to control. So one of the first strategies it uses is to divide and isolate. It doesn't have to happen with big, obvious gestures. Most of the time, it's slow, quiet, and calculated. A word here, a suggestion there, a small seed of doubt planted in your mind about someone you trust. Over time, those seeds grow into distance, and that distance becomes isolation. They'll start by subtly undermining your relationships. Maybe they hint that one of your friends doesn't truly care about you. Maybe they question a family member's intentions. They might say things like, "I don't think they really understand you," or "I noticed they weren't there for you when you needed them." At first, it seems like concern. It sounds like they're looking out for you, but what they're really doing is breaking the bonds that keep you anchored to reality. Because here's the truth: if you have people in your life who can see clearly, they can warn you when something's wrong. They can point out the red flags you might be ignoring, and evil people can't afford that. They need to be the main voice you listen to, the one perspective you depend on. And the fewer competing voices there are, the easier it is for theirs to be the only one that matters. They're skilled at creating conflict where there wasn't any before. They might misquote something someone said to you, leaving out key details or changing the tone so it sounds worse than it was. They might accidentally let slip a private comment they claim to have overheard, or they might create situations that force you to choose between spending time with them or with someone else, making you feel guilty for choosing anyone but them. At first, you might think you're making your own decisions. You might believe you're just growing apart from certain people. But if you step back, you'll notice a pattern. The more this person is in your life, the fewer other people you keep close. Your circle gets smaller, not because of natural drift, but because of carefully placed wedges, and the isolation isn't always physical. Even if you still see your friends or family, the connection can be weakened. You might start feeling like they don't understand you anymore, or like you can't fully trust them. You might stop sharing personal things with them because you're afraid of how they'll react, a fear that often came from suggestions planted by the person isolating you. Once you're isolated enough, everything changes. Without outside input, you start relying solely on this person for perspective. They become your sounding board, your source of truth, and when that happens, they can feed you any narrative they want without competition. They can paint themselves as the only one who truly understands you, the only one who's been loyal, the only one worth keeping around. What's even more dangerous is that sometimes they'll disguise this isolation as love or protection. They'll say they just want more time with you, or that they don't want you around toxic people. And sometimes, yes, there are genuinely toxic relationships worth leaving, but with an evil person, the pattern is that everyone eventually becomes a problem except them. They're not protecting you from harm, they're protecting their control over you. And here's the thing about isolation. It doesn't just cut you off from people, it cuts you off from perspective. When you only hear one voice, it becomes harder to tell the difference between truth and manipulation. You lose the ability to step outside the story they're telling you. You can end up living in a version of reality they've crafted, without realizing there's a much bigger picture you're not seeing. It's like being in a room with the blinds drawn. At first, you think it's just cozy, private, but the longer you stay there, the easier it is to forget what daylight even looks like. You stop checking for it, you stop realizing it's missing, and then one day, if you're lucky enough to open those blinds, you see how much you've been kept from. The reason isolation works so well is because humans are wired for connection. We need it, we thrive on it. And when it's taken away, our minds become more dependent on whatever interaction we do have. That dependence is the hook. Once you're hooked, it's hard to imagine life without them, because they've made sure you can't see anyone else as a safe option. It's important to recognize the signs early. If you notice someone in your life consistently pulling you away from others, questioning your relationships without solid reasons, or making you feel like only they truly care, pay attention. If you find yourself explaining your friends' or family's behavior less and less because you've already started believing the doubts they've planted, pay attention. Because isolation isn't just a side effect of being around certain people, it's often the plan. And once you're alone, once you've lost those outside voices that keep you grounded, they have the space to rewrite your entire world. And that's when they become the loudest, clearest, and only voice you hear. One of the most unsettling traits you'll ever see in an evil person is their ability to justify the harm they cause. They don't think of themselves as cruel, selfish, or destructive, at least not in their own mind. They reframe it, they rename it, they wrap it in words that make it sound reasonable, even noble. And that's what allows them to do terrible things without losing a moment's sleep. You'll hear it in how they explain themselves. They'll say, "I had no choice." They'll tell you, "It was for your own good." They'll insist, "You forced me to do it." They twist the story so they're not the villain, they're the misunderstood hero, making the hard decisions no one else is willing to make. And if you're not paying attention, you might even start to believe them. This is what makes their cruelty so dangerous. They genuinely believe it's justified, or at least, they've convinced themselves it is. In their mind, they're not hurting you. They're teaching you a lesson. They're not betraying you. They're protecting themselves. They're not controlling you. They're guiding you. Every harmful action becomes a necessity. Every betrayal becomes a sacrifice. Every manipulation becomes just the way it has to be. The reason this works so well is because the human mind is wired to make sense of its actions. Most people can't live with the idea that they're the bad guy, so instead of facing the truth, they rewrite it. But when someone's heart is bent toward evil, that rewriting isn't just self-preservation, it's a tool. They know that if they can make you see their actions as justified, you'll stop fighting them. Sometimes they'll even use morality to mask their harm. They'll claim they're standing up for what's right, even as they tear someone down. They'll dress up their selfishness as responsibility, their control as leadership, their abuse as discipline, and if you challenge them, they'll act offended as if you're attacking not just them, but the very values they claim to stand for. It's not uncommon for them to hide behind a tough love. They'll say, "I'm only being hard on you because I care." But real love doesn't humiliate, belittle, or strip you of your dignity. Real love doesn't leave you feeling smaller and more powerless every time you're around it. What they call a tough love is often just cruelty with a better marketing strategy. You might notice this pattern in how they respond when they're confronted. They won't say, "I was wrong." Instead, they'll explain at length why what they did was necessary. They'll paint a picture where the harm was unavoidable, maybe even a favor to you, and the more convincing they are, the more you start to wonder if they might be right. That's the point. They want you questioning your pain instead of their actions, and here's the subtle trap. When someone consistently frames their cruelty as righteousness, you can start to internalize the idea that being hurt is just part of what's best for you. You stop resisting, you stop expecting better treatment, you even start justifying it to others, saying things like, they mean well, or they're just looking out for me. And before you know it, their voice becomes the one that defines what's acceptable in your life. This kind of justification also gives them a dangerous confidence. Because if they believe their actions are morally sound, there's no reason to stop. In fact, they may feel emboldened to go further, to push boundaries, to take more from you, all under the banner of doing the right thing. And because they've already trained you to see their harm as necessary, each new offense slips by with less resistance. Some of them even take pride in it. They'll say, I'm not afraid to do what needs to be done, as if causing pain makes them strong or principled. But strength isn't measured by how much you can hurt someone, it's measured by how much you can help without causing harm. They miss that entirely, or maybe they understand it, and they just don't care. The really chilling part is that they can be so convincing that outsiders believe them too. They can tell a version of events so polished, so rehearsed, that people on the outside think you're the one who overreacted. They might even rally others to their side, painting you as ungrateful for not appreciating the hard decisions that they made. And the more people believe them, the more power they have to keep doing it. This is why it's so important to pay attention not just to the story someone tells, but to the results of their actions. You can dress up cruelty in noble words, but the outcome will always reveal the truth. Does their necessary action leave people healthier, stronger, freer? Or does it leave them broken, silenced, and smaller than before? Real love, real leadership, real care, these always build. They don't destroy. If you find yourself around someone who constantly explains away their harmful behavior, watch for the pattern. Are they always the hero in their own story? Do they ever take responsibility, or is every wrong they commit somehow justified? Do they treat your pain as something to learn from, or something they can use to prove a point? Because once you see that they can harm you without remorse, and even worse, with a sense of pride, you'll understand that this isn't someone who will change just because they should. They don't see a reason to. In their mind, they're already right, and as long as they believe that, they will keep doing the same thing again and again. Some people have a way of making you feel like you're constantly on trial. It's not that they confront you outright, no, that would be too obvious. Instead, they keep you in a state of subtle doubt. You're always questioning yourself. You walk away from conversations wondering, did I say the wrong thing? Did I offend them? Did I misunderstand? And over time, that doubt becomes a habit. You start to silence your own voice just to keep the peace. This is one of the most toxic tactics evil people use. They manipulate your perception of reality until you can't tell what's true anymore. They'll twist small facts in casual conversation. They'll change the sequence of events when they retell a story, and they'll do it with such confidence that you begin to think your memory might be the problem. It's subtle at first, just little inconsistencies that you brush off, but here's the thing, when you confront them, they don't back down. They double down, they make you feel foolish for even asking, and before long, you've been conditioned to stop questioning altogether. And that's exactly what they want, to make you rely on them for the version of reality you accept. It's not just about control, it's about dependency. They want to be the filter between you and the truth. This way, your trust in your own instincts weakens while your reliance on them grows stronger, and if you're not careful, they'll get you to a place where you're defending them to others, even when deep down something feels wrong. You might hear people say, well, that's just gaslighting, and yes, that's the word for it, but I want you to understand, it's not just some pop psychology buzzword. It's a calculated pattern of behavior designed to dismantle your sense of reality piece by piece. It's the frog in the pot scenario. They turn up the heat so slowly, you don't notice until you're boiling. Think about the power in that. If someone can make you question your own perception, your own memory, your own feelings, they can make you believe anything. They can convince you that you're the problem when they're the one creating the mess. They can make you apologize for being hurt. And if they can do that, they can control every move you make. The most dangerous part is how invisible it can be to outsiders. Friends, family, co-workers, they might not see what's happening, because evil people are masters at keeping this manipulation behind closed doors. They show the world one face and show you another, and if you try to explain it, you might feel like no one will believe you. That's part of the trap. They isolate you not just physically but mentally, convincing you that your experience is invalid or exaggerated. And so you start doubting yourself more. Maybe you do get too sensitive. Maybe you are overreacting. You replay conversations in your head trying to figure out where you went wrong. You lose sleep, you feel drained all the time, and the scary thing, they notice. They see your energy dipping, your spirit dimming, and they feel victorious. That's the win they're after, but here's what they don't expect. Awareness breaks their power. The moment you start keeping track, writing things down, trusting your gut, refusing to let their version of events replace your own, you start taking back control. Evil thrives in confusion, but it weakens in clarity. When you know what's happening, you stop taking their bait. You stop arguing about the details and start holding onto the truth you know is real. It's not easy. There will be moments when you still doubt yourself, moments when you wonder if maybe you're the one in the wrong. But I'm telling you, if you feel your mind getting foggy every time you're around a certain person, if you leave conversations more uncertain than when you started, that is not love, that is not friendship, that is not healthy. That is control dressed up as connection, and it will cost you more than you realize if you let it keep going. It will cost you your confidence, your relationships, your joy, but you don't have to hand those things over. You can stop the erosion of your reality by choosing to believe your own mind over their manipulation. That's the choice you have to make, and if you don't make it soon, you might wake up one day and realize you've been living in someone else's version of life for far too long, a version where you lose every time, no matter how hard you try. You owe it to yourself to step out of their shadow and back into the light of truth. If this message opened your eyes, don't let it stop here. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell so you never miss a truth that could protect your life, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Your awareness could be the reason someone else is saved from harm.